Hello, welcome back to Ninsight. I'll be hosting today's episode of Ninsight Zoom, the first episode actually, where we take a deeper look at the week of gaming. If you haven't watched Ninsight 90, it might be a good idea to check the cards for the video. That's the 90-second sum up of the week's news. This is actually going to be this week and last week's news, so we've got a lot to talk about today. Alright, so the first story is IGN announcing a new Summer of Gaming digital event starting this June. As an E3 replacement, actually. Not an official E3 replacement, bear that in mind, but it is a replacement to E3 as an event. It follows after the E3 physical event was officially cancelled on the 11th of March, so basically there's going to be a load of partners collaborating, including 2K, Square Enix, Sega, Bandai Namco, interestingly Amazon, Twitter, Google Stadia as well, Devolver Digital and THQ Nordic. So they've got quite a few partners roped in for it, and it's an IGN event. This is not E3, ESA that obviously host E3. This is not part of them. This is unofficial. This is IGN's property. As I said before, Nintendo have already responded to this cancellation, the official E3 cancellation, saying they are considering various ways to engage with their fans. That's probably going to mean a direct. To be honest, there's not anything else really. As we all know, there's been over 200 days since a main direct, and we actually recently had a mini direct, but we've not had a full one in a long time. I feel like this is probably their chance to do a direct, but I feel like it's not going to affect Nintendo that much. And to be honest, if we look at the entire gaming perspective, Sony actually pulled out of E3 2020. Xbox, I believe they were still planning on doing it. Same with Nintendo, but you know, people still gather to watch it. I take a lot of news, and particularly for Nintendo fans and fans of particular consoles, I feel like it gives them a view of the other consoles and the other companies, what they're up to. Because personally, I only really keep up with Nintendo, so it gives me a chance to keep up with what other developers and companies are doing. So it is a shame, but obviously with recent events it does make total sense. Dates for E3 2021 have also been announced as the 15th to the 17th of June. To be honest, I don't think it's likely, because this global event is going to be going on for quite some time. I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to. Obviously they're not going to cancel it yet. They have announced things, and a lot of companies have announced events. I believe there was actually another gaming event in the UK specifically, sponsored by Virgin Media, I believe. They have actually announced it. They've not cancelled it. They've actually announced it now, and I believe it's nearer the end of this year. But interestingly, they have announced it, but I do expect they'll probably cancel that eventually. Okay, next up though, skip to this part of the video to avoid this rumour. Alright, brace yourself. The latest installment of Cookie Mama, Cookstar, has been found to be abusing Nintendo Switch consoles to mine cryptocurrency. As I said before, this is completely false. None of this should be believed. I'm going to be making a separate video on this in the distant future, probably within the next week or so, giving the entire story on this now that we've got releases of statements from both companies that have been a major part of this. So there will be another video, and if it's already up, check the cards above in the top right, and it will be there. So just as a brief summary, the game was originally going to include blockchain technology to assign unique IDs to players so each user could have a different experience with the game, but this was abandoned, and this is where the cryptocurrency idea came from. They mentioned blockchain, and in their press release as well they mentioned blockchain, which is quite strange, but it's not strange at all. It's completely legit. It's nothing to do with cryptocurrency just because it's blockchain. And again, I'll be explaining it in the video, but basically poor removal of the blockchain code now drains the Switch's battery, but it does not fry your console like some people have been suggesting. They are completely false, and as we debunk the entire story and the PSA that people put out, it is, it's a total lie, most of it. And although these rumours might have been false, it wasn't exactly an amazing game, so you're not missing out on much, because reviewers like Nintendo Life gave it a 3 out of 10. So although it may be, a collector's piece or a rare game in the future, might be quite a lot of money, it's not really much you've missed out on. Alright, next story. Sakurai has announced that development of Fighters Pass Volume 2 for Smash Bros. Is now taking place remotely, following, again, recent and ongoing events. which I'm not able to mention, but I think we all know what it is. Yeah, so he's said that he's supervising the project from a distance. He's, quote, high security project, obviously keeping fighters under wraps. I assume that's what he means by that. They don't want anyone leaking anything, and that's totally understandable. But he's still got to supervise the project from a distance, and you know, I can understand that that'd be quite difficult. Although it would be difficult supervising the project from a distance, as he says. A lot of games and things and films, whatnot recently, and in the entertainment industry have been delayed recently. So if this is successful, it would prevent delays, especially because Nintendo announced the 7th DLC fighter will be a character from ARMS, and it's aiming to launch in June. So absolutely crucial if they want to stick to their end of 2021 deadline for all 6 fighters pass 2 fighters. Alright, bit of exclusive news for you Ninsight Zoom viewers now. The eShop Spring Sale is live and there's over 700 Switch games on sale. Some of the best offers include Breath of the Wild, which is really good, 30% off at £41.99. Golf Stories half price at £6.74. And the LEGO Harry Potter collections also half price at £17.49. You can view all the offers on the eShop now until Sunday the 19th of April. Nintendo have also announced some more Switch games that are on sale, so it may be beyond 700 games on sale, which is a massive amount compared to the overall amount of games that are on the Switch. So definitely worth checking your wish list, see if any of your wish list games are on there. And again, skip to this part of the video to avoid this rumour. Firmware 10.0.0 adds preliminary support for a new hardware model, NX ABCD, and as we know, Nintendo Switch was actually originally referred to as the NX, so it's quite interesting that they're using the same code, supposedly for a new unit possibly. 3 of the 5 new DRAM profiles are for this new hardware type, and there's evidence of a secondary display of sorts, quite like the gamepad on the Wii U we expect, being added exclusively on this model. So, interestingly, 10.0.0 for the Switch recently just released. As we know, the main features are rebinding your controllers, which is a great feature, by the way. Also, one really big standout feature for me is save data transfer. When I looked about half a year ago now, I think it was Christmas, I got an SD card so I could buy more digital games, because I buy a lot of physical games. But I thought, you know what, I want the option to buy more digital, because the 32GB the Switch offers isn't exactly the biggest amount of storage in the world, especially when you're downloading larger files. With the Switch, I actually looked and I expected it to be a thing, but it wasn't actually possible to transfer save data. It wasn't possible to transfer much over to the SD card actually, only new downloads. So now this feature's on the Switch, it's definitely going to be very helpful for me. It's interesting though to see people speculating about a new model again. As we know, there's a lot of delays, as I mentioned earlier, so I doubt this is going to be a 2020 release. This is probably going to be 2021. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do if they release a new hardware type, if they release a Switch with 2 screens, quite like the 3DS or with the Wii U, where they had the gamepad and they'd have the TV output as well. Not only with the 3DS, but going back to that point of the 3DS, you had the new 3DS. There were a lot of 3DSs released. If no one knows that, I mean, clearly there were a lot of 3DSs released. The 2DS, the 3DS, that's why they called it the 3DS family in the end. And obviously now with the Switch, they call it the Nintendo Switch family of consoles because of the Lite as well. But with the 3DS, they released the newer, or the new Nintendo 3DS. And that had a extra pad, and you could play games like Minecraft with that, because that obviously involves 2 sticks instead of 1. So it was really tiny. It was just below the top screen, I believe. Still on the bottom screen though. And it was interesting. There were a few exclusive games for that console, or for that handheld rather, but there weren't many. There were only about 2 or 3. So it will be interesting to see if they release exclusives for this, or if they make it so you unlock more functionality using the other screen, or if it makes it easy to use touch controls while you're doing another game. Also, interesting one, will it be possible to capture the second unit? Because as we know, if you're playing in handheld, you actually cannot capture the screen, which is really a shame, especially for games that play better handheld, games like Brain Training as well, games that are speedrun as well, that are a lot easier to run on the tablet as opposed to the TV screen. It'll be really interesting to see if they make it possible to capture it. Alright, moving on to the next article. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has soared in sales in the UK. Now this is interesting because when I first got the Switch about a month after launch, this was actually the first game I bought for it. I didn't have any games for it for a while. Only really the demo of like Puyo Puyo Tetris or something like that. But Mario Kart was actually my first game for the Switch. It's the highest selling Switch game of all time, if I remember correctly. And it's went from 25th place on the weekly charts to 5th place. It's gone up 20 places. It's seen a 317% weekly sales boost. That is 4 times as much stock selling as normal, putting it back in the weekly top 10 charts. This is likely because Nintendo UK have been hosting 4 6-hour tournaments a week for £10 eShop credit, which is a lot of giveaways actually happening from now until the 9th of June. I believe that's for £10 a week, 4 lots of £10, up until the 9th of June, which is quite a lot. Either that or they're going to do one big competition at the end. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's only open to UK residents, but you can play in the tournament if you're in another country. I don't think there's functionality in tournaments where you can actually block people in other countries from playing. Yeah, I don't think it's actually anything to do with how many points you get. It's rather just sending a tweet and then you get entered into the competition basically. But it's meant a lot of people have been buying Mario Kart, and it's actually put it back in the top charts, which is incredible really. Especially surrounding releases like Animal Crossing, which are really friendly to play while you're in lockdown. Really great single player game. I've actually not dived into it yet for the Switch. I'm yet to buy it, but I probably will at some point. I'll probably cave in and buy it. And another thing, if you want to join in on the action, you can check the description of this video for the codes and how to enter the giveaways. As I said, you'll need to send a tweet and with a hashtag, so definitely check the Nintendo UK link in the description. And you'll find all the info you need there. Okay, another piece of exclusive news. The ESRB North American Ratings Board will now include a new interactive element warning players about loot boxes and other random items. As other countries have introduced gambling, North American are jumping on the bandwagon now. Good reason as well, because there's been a lot of backlash recently, particularly surrounding console games, but also mobile games too, for loot boxes and random items. For in-app purchases. So this is in addition to the in-game purchases element they added all the way back in 2018, so that's 2 years ago now. And finally they're adding a loot box and random items interactive element. I think it's great that that the ratings boards are jumping on and clamping down really on in-app purchases, especially because of games like FIFA that really heavily rely on in-app purchases, but not really rely as such because they have the game. You sell them the game, but not only that, you actually buy points and things in the game, which is not great, especially for a console game. People tend to not really expect it because the vast majority of console games don't have in-app purchases. You just buy the game and you have the game. That's generally how it works on console. It's more of a mobile format, and it's just because the majority don't do this that people tend to, you know, riot when they hear in-app purchases, especially with FIFA and things like that. Annoyingly though, people have suggested that, you know, companies are going to turn into Activision, where they're suggesting that the developers of games, they're not going to put in-app purchases in, and they're going to promote, hey, this game doesn't have in-app purchases, so that the physical copies don't actually have to have the includes in-app purchases element that the ESRB have actually introduced, which will be quite sneaky to be fair, but clearly it does go on, and then obviously introduce them at a later date, so then the people that have already bought the physical copies don't have it on their copy of the game really, which is quite sneaky, but it is obviously a way around it, but it's better than nothing, so not really any complaining there. Alright, and our final article of the video, Google Stadia Pro is now 3 for 2 months for anyone with a Gmail address. Yes, that is a Gmail email address. That is literally all you need for the free trial. This gives you access to 9 games for free without having to pay a penny. So if you're stuck indoors with absolutely no distractions, this is at least one option. But obviously if you're here, you've probably got a Switch or some sort of Nintendo console, or you have an interest in it anyway. It's funny because I saw the replies to the tweet, and people were saying, I think the top reply was, is it funny that I'm not interested still? Even though there's a free trial for 2 months. And it's actually Google Stadia Pro, so you've got the access to the full package instead of the free trial, the actual free trial. So, you know, I mean, there is still an option, but it's funny seeing the comments of people, you know, they're still not interested, even though the games are free. But obviously, a lot of people are on the internet, and this Google Stadia relies completely on streaming. It's not a console. This does not come with the controller either, so you'd need either a Bluetooth keyboard, or just a keyboard normally, or you'd need a separate Bluetooth controller or something along those lines. Interesting to see them still trying to bring this back, but, you know, who knows, maybe something will happen with it, but the entire gaming community seems to be against Stadia, really. The console will still go on, but they've just not really found their footing, and so, you know, it's kind of just fell apart. But because Google have got so much money, they can just keep throwing at it. That's why they've been throwing money at it, because it's just a free, you know, they don't lose much out of it, so they might as well have a crack at it, but they've not had much of a crack at it. Alright, and that concludes this week's Ninsight Zoom. So if you want more like this, definitely consider subscribing as well. We've got some socials in the description as well if you want to continue the support. My Twitter as well. I'll be posting some articles midweek alongside these videos there, so definitely check that out. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'm Andrew, zooming out.